gentlemen, the Stone Cold Sensei.
I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
This is The Pencil, a professional wrestling podcast starring Renny D and friends. Thanks for listening to The Pencil. Subscribe to the show on iTunes and follow us on Twitter at Pencil Podcast.
It's Wednesday night, now the show is finally here. 19 years old, I'm still too young to drink this beer, but I digress. She's a wearing dress, but a big blue eyes from my undervest, and I can't send it back that I don't know her name yet.
Alright, welcome back. It is Tuesday, it's episode 13, it's November 4th, which means today was the day you should get out to the polls and do your American duty of voting. But this is not a political podcast. This is the professional wrestling podcast. You are listening to The Pencil with myself and my cohort, Travis Mester. Do us a favor, rate and review on iTunes as long as subscribe. Each and every single week, we bring professional wrestling action to you via the podcast airways. And like I mentioned, as joining me on the hotline, the sexual hotline, if you will, is Dirt Mester. Dirt's recovered after a long weekend in Nashville. You're back home. Your feet's on solid ground. Dirty, what's going on, my friend?
I've been watching a lot of NBA basketball the last week and a half. I'm excited about that season starting, but I have not fallen off the grid on the WWE landscape. Excited about my Monday Night Raw last night, and they used to say that July, August, September, October, November, those are the dog days, right? It doesn't seem like it after last night's Raw. I think we're getting close to the road. I can smell it. I can smell the road.
I can smell the asphalt being laid. The road to WrestleMania. Tickets go on sale, I believe, this Saturday or next Saturday for the event, which actually takes place this year in San Francisco, California, home of the greatest football team of all time, my San Francisco 49ers. But it's funny, you mentioned the National Basketball Association, the NBA. Our guest this evening is an ESPN radio personality out of the Minnesota area, the Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities, ESPN 1500. Phil Mackey has spent most of his adult life covering professional sports on the radio. Now, Travis, you cover professional sports, or sports in general, I guess, not professional per se, via the newspaper. So you two should have a lot in common. We have a lot to talk about in Minnesota, but one thing that I'm extremely interested in is his take on potential WrestleMania 33 being in Minneapolis at the brand new Vikings Stadium, because that would be like a home field advantage for you and I.
Oh, man, I listen to Phil Mackey regularly up here. I live in the Twin Cities area for the last almost 2 years now. I'm excited to have Phil on the show tonight. He's going to have some good respect to wrestling and to sports in general. So anybody that likes to watch some wrestling and maybe like some actual sports on the side is going to love our last half hour of the show tonight.
Absolutely, and it's all about diversity on this show. We try to bring you guests that are involved in professional wrestling, guests who like professional wrestling. One way, shape, or another, we're going to provide you an entertaining aspect or an entertaining show. And just to let you know, potentially this weekend there could be a live episode of The Pencil, as I'm actually going to be traveling from Milwaukee over to your neck of the woods, Dirt, Minneapolis, Minnesota, celebrating a friend's special day. And maybe we can celebrate with a live podcast with our buddies, a couple beverages, and more pro wrestling.
You'll be celebrating with at least one bottle of Southern Comfort that I still have not paid forward from me losing for the first time on the pay-per-view predictions, which I'm just disappointed in myself about. But as a man, I will pay it up. Friday, you will get your bottle, my man.
My bottle, because I watched WWE Hell in a Cell on the WWE Network at that time for $9.99, but now for the month of November, the WWE has decided to give the network away for first-time users for free, and that includes Survivor Series. And we were talking this week, Travis, and this is a big emphasis on the WWE because their future is on the network. Now, when the network first came out, right before WrestleMania, I believe the subscriber numbers the first time was 647,000 subscribers. Not bad. I think they want more. Their goal of 1 million subscribers by the end of this year seems far off from that number, but just recently they came out with the updated numbers of 731,000. So they added just under 90,000 users, and that includes the launch in Canada and international. However, there are issues with the UK launch. And it's also important to keep in mind that the Canadian launch, it's only available on Rogers Television, so a lot of the Canadian viewers up there still can't get the WWE Network. First off, Travis, if the UK subscription base can go through before the end of the year, will the WWE reach their goal of 1 million network subscribers by December 31st?
I believe they will, and I think that if you would ask me that question 48 hours ago, I think I would have said no. But I think last night's Raw is what we can expect for the next 3 weeks. And if you're a wrestling fan, I think we can be very excited about it because, as I said earlier, I think this time of year, a lot of times, is when things get shoved under the rug, and sometimes it's not the best TV. But because of what they're doing this month, giving away that free month, they've got that goal in mind of 1 million. I think we're going to be seeing some unbelievable main events and some very, very good storytelling over the next 3 weeks leading into Survivor Series, which will be one of, if not a top 2 or 3 pay-per-view of this year. I think we have the possibility to be one of the best, maybe the top pay-per-view of the year to this point because of what they're doing with the network. And like you said, this is the lifeline of the WWE right now, and they need the network to succeed. And after last night, I think we're only going forward in a positive light for the next 3 to 4 weeks to make sure that it succeeds.
Yeah, you would think, given the fact that they're giving away the network for free to first-time subscribers, and the fact that they took away the 6-month commitment for subscribers like myself, and now I pay monthly, $9.99. I can cancel at any time, which is fantastic. You would think that they're going to go ahead and go all balls out on Survivor Series to make sure it's one of the best pay-per-views of the year, because if you're watching it for the first time on the network for free, you're going to want to impress them. Be honest, people. If you don't have the network and you're a wrestling fan, you're absolutely crazy. For $9.99, and I'm not trying to put over the WWE.
I'll rephrase that. If you're a wrestling fan and you don't have the WWE Network, you are not a wrestling fan.
Absolutely, because I don't know how much you have gotten into the original content. I've been pretty slow. To be honest with you, I'm a big wrestling fan. I initially got the network because I wanted to watch the pay-per-views. I was tired of paying $55 to DirecTV to watch a mediocre pay-per-view. Well, now I can pay $10 or $10.61 after taxes a month or whatever it is, get every pay-per-view, every single one of the year, get the original content, which Monday Night Wars, I started watching that this week. It's fantastic. And now they have this new WWE rivalries coming out. And even on top of that, last night's Raw, they did something for the first time since the network has launched that I thought they should have done in the early stages. And that was feature a pretty important match. When Monday Night Raw went dead on the USA Network, they featured a U.S. Championship match on the network after Monday Night Raw. I watched the match because, to me, it was important for a couple of reasons. One, we do this podcast. We need to keep up to date with what's going on with it. But that's how you get people to tune in, and it's free. So why wouldn't you log on to network.wwe.com and watch the U.S. Championship match last night, which showed that Rusev is still undefeated. I figured as much. He'd go over for the U.S. title. Did you get a chance to log into the network and watch the match, or did you just have to read the results afterwards?
I read the recap afterwards, but I was excited for you to bring it up on this show tonight because how far do you think they'll go with that? Do you think they'll have bigger matches than even what they have? Do you think we'll see championship matches, tag team matches? God forbid if someday they'll do a Lesnar match or something like that, to the point of pushing it so hard that there'll be legitimate titles defended regularly on the network. And if they do that, do you think that's good or bad for Raw and SmackDown?
I don't necessarily think it has to be a title match every single time, but I think they should make a habit of doing this until at least the subscriber networks are where they want it to be. Now, last night we had the Randy Orton-Seth Rollins segment. Now, this is just hypothetical. This would piss a lot of people off, but if it's free, there's no excuse not to get the network. What if they cut that Seth Rollins-Randy Orton match in half last night? Like, they darted out midway through that match, or right before that match got dirty after Monday Night Raw, after the match was done. What if they cut it out and said, watch the rest on the network live? You know, obviously the people watching on USA Network are probably very upset, but if you never got the network before, log on. It's free. You can watch the rest of it. I think that they can really utilize this platform. Let's be honest. They do a dark match every single week after Raw and SmackDown tapings anyway. You know, if they can make that dark match mean something, and now it's not a dark match anymore, so now Raw is 3 hours and 25 minutes long. But if that last 15 minutes of Monday Night Raw that's on the network is as awesome as it was last night watching Rusev go over, it's one huge way to sell the network and get people to buy into that network. Because honestly, $10 a month, man, you can get HBO and Showtime and you know those programs for more than $10 a month. This is an unbelievable deal. It's fantastic, and it's a steal.
But I will say, I thought what they did last night, while it was interesting, I think all it did for me was just it just showed me how unnecessary it is for Raw to be 3 hours. Because I like what you're talking about. Have 20 minutes, have 30 minutes every Monday night on the network after Raw that is actually helping storylines, and that's stuff that fans are going to need to watch to keep up on everything. But it just doesn't need to be 3.5 hours. Like, if there's a 2-hour Raw and then 20 minutes afterwards, it's easier to get on board with than having to take legit. I mean, 2.5 hours is long enough. You don't need 6:55 to 10:30 in the Twin Cities every Monday night to stay up on storylines. I just feel like it's even more overkill. But I mean, I like what they did.
I'm with you, man.
There's just too much on Raw that's not good to have to wait till after Raw to watch something that's actually productive.
I'm absolutely with you. Put Raw back on the 2 hours and put half an hour on the network afterwards. Get rid of the stupid pre-show that people don't buy into because they know professional wrestling is a scripted sport. The pre-shows are dumb. It's almost as much as, obviously, like, it's if you and I got handed a script before our pay-per-view predictions and we sat here and we still made predictions. That's how dumb it is. We don't know the outcome of these matches because we're not employed by WWE, so we predict the matches based on how we would book the storylines. Booker T, for the most part, knows who's going over the match unless they're actually keeping him silent and predicts the winner of certain matches. So I guess, moving forward on the network aspect, obviously, taking away the 6-month commitment, I think, is huge for them. People can just buy in when they want to. But if I'm a business owner like the WWE, I would include all pay-per-views for free except WrestleMania. And the only reason I say that is because WrestleMania is the Super Bowl of professional wrestling. It's the biggest event of the year. It's, as you would say, Dirt, it's the showcase. It is the fucking showcase. People will pay to see that. Even if they make it $25 in the network, they could increase the price of that one pay-per-view on the network, and people would still buy it because it's that big of an event. So the fact that you're getting it for $10 at this point is remarkable that they're not at their $1 million mark. But with the UK, the launch not out there yet, because the UK is one of the biggest wrestling markets in the entire planet. Once their Sky Sports situation, they get that figured out and it gets in there, and then up in Canada as well, once they figure that out, I believe that the WWE Network will get their 1 million viewers. And I mentioned this on Twitter, and I'll make it brief. At $9.99 subscription, the WWE is making more on the WWE Network right now than they made on pay-per-view buys going through Dish Network, DirecTV, Comcast, Time Warner, AT&T, all the cable companies. I looked up the average pay-per-view buys, and basically WWE takes about half of the $54, and WWE right now is making more on the network for the $9.99 a month. But the fact is, since they have a network staff that they have to pay now, just because they're making more money on the income, is now they have more expenses with the network. So they are losing money. Not making as much.
And they'll be giving this next month's pay-per-view away for free, which, right, if we remember, Pencil Podcast listeners, last week, one of yours truly said that at that Survivor Series, there would be a chance that the game, Triple H, participates in a match. And one of us said, there's no way. Renny D, you were the one that said Triple H is not participating in Survivor Series. Have you changed that tune after last night's Raw?
I'm leaning more towards the fact that he might. And I'm going to tell you why. Now, last Tuesday when we recorded, there was no, I never thought Vince would come out and put some sort of stipulation that if Team Authority loses, they lose power. Now, realistically, if Triple H is going to put together the best damn team possible, the best 5 guys possible, why wouldn't he be the captain of his own team? And that is the only reason I think that he potentially could wrestle. And for the fact that they are giving away this network for free, you can watch the network for free and see Triple H in action again. Why the hell not? Why wouldn't it be? It's going to be a dumb business decision by the WWE if Triple H doesn't wrestle. So, I mean, am I changing my tune? I still, for some reason, feel like he's not going to wrestle, but he damn well should. And I'm leaning a lot more towards now that he's going to wrestle at Survivor Series than I said last Tuesday because, A, the network announcement as far as it being free, and B, Vince being awesome last night on Raw and making it a compelling storyline moving forward. Where are you sitting at? I mean, obviously, you brought it up. You were the man who initially planted this seed. You poured water on that sumbitch, and it's growing. Are you still on that? Are you still on that train?
I think it only makes sense. I don't think, especially considering last night we heard 4 names, and Randy Orton was one of them that they wanted to be on Team Authority. I think it's pretty clear at this point that Randy Orton will not be on Team Authority, obviously, and probably will not be on the pay-per-view whatsoever. So that leaves 3 people on Team Authority. They're looking for 2 more guys. I would think one more from the roster, and they'll be sitting with 4 guys until the Monday night, the go home show of Monday Night Raw before Survivor Series, and then the game will announce that he will be the 5th and the captain of Team Authority against Team Cena, which will most likely lead to a lot of Cena versus Triple H stare downs and fights during the match, which, I mean, that's a matchup that, I mean, you pay, there 2 years ago, you're happy to pay $45-$50 for that, and we're getting it for free this month.
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable, and the fact, let's talk about Team Cena and Team Authority at this point. I know we were going to talk about this a little bit later in the show, but why not? We're on the subject now. We have Seth Rollins, as Triple H called him, the captain of the team last night. Now, whether or not that remains to be true moving forward, we'll see. We have Kane. Who else did you have on Team Authority right now? You have Seth Rollins, you have Kane.
As of last week, I said I thought Stardust and Goldust, but after last night, I don't see that coming to fruition. I think at this point they've planted the Mark Henry idea, which I think will probably happen.
Yep.
And Rusev is a possibility. I don't know if I'm on board with that. And if that's the case, then that's 4 guys, and then I would say Triple H, and that would be the 5.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, I can be on board with that. If I'm going to buy all in on Triple H joining the Team Authority, those are the 5 that I would have on that team as well, based on what they did last night. And I'll take Team Cena. Then obviously we have Cena, Dolph Ziggler. I tweeted this out from our account. I really think that they should take a bunch of misfits that the internet wrestling community said that Triple H shit on. So Zack Ryder should be on Team Cena. Now, I know there are people who are going to be laughing at me for saying that, but think about it. If they could turn this into a real life, basically storyline, for the fact that Zack Ryder and Dolph Ziggler never got a push in the WWE in the last couple of years because of Triple H, then why not have them join Team Cena? I mean, so I'm going to say Team Cena is John Cena, obviously, Dolph Ziggler, Zack Ryder. I also think the Big Show based on what we saw last night. And for some reason, because I still think that Ryback's going to challenge Rusev moving forward, I think Ryback is that 5th member, or potentially it could be Sheamus now, given the situation that happened last night. But they were recruiting, or they were watching the screen last night during the Ryback match, so that's why I'm going to go Ryback. So I got Cena, I got fucking, Dolph Ziggler, Zack Ryder, Ryback, and the Big Show on my Team Cena. Where are you at with Team Cena? Are you similar, or are you totally off?
I would say I really liked what they did on Raw last night with having the whole Authority versus Cena almost be the overcap of every single match. Even the Titus O'Neil versus Ryback, Titus O'Neil made reference to it before the match, almost giving you that idea that every guy on the roster is a possible candidate to be on each team. So it's almost like last night was a showcase for everyone that thought they could be on Team Cena, and now I'm sure John Cena will be on next week to ask people to be on his team. I would anticipate that Sheamus will be there instead of Ryback. I don't think Ryback will be on any team. I think that was probably just mirrors last night. So sure. I would say the same 5 guys as you, but I would replace Sheamus with Ryback.
And that's a good main event, man. That is a good 5-on-5 match.
That's a great main event with star power galore, and it would give Dolph Ziggler and Zack Ryder an unbelievable push to be able to say that they're in something that matters. And as much as Dolph Ziggler has mattered and Zack Ryder hasn't, neither of them has mattered enough to think that they would be in a match like that, and it would give them a really good place to showcase their skills, and I think it'd be entertaining, to say the least, with those 10 guys in the main event.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, too, you mentioned that Randy Orton might not be at Survivor Series based on the ending of Raw last night. And the ending of Raw was one of the best endings to a Monday Night Raw I've seen in a long time. Now, granted, there was blood, but that wasn't intentional. But the fact is, Randy Orton, and if this is your first time listening to this podcast, I'm going to say it, Travis, is the best wrestler in the world. Hands down. Last night, again, to me, he proved it with everything he did in the ring. The match with Seth Rollins was good. I was pissed off with the match, to be completely honest with you, because I never thought those two should get in the ring and wrestle each other until the time came at a pay-per-view. But with that being said, because of the way that things went down last night at the end of the show, that builds for one hell of a singles match at TLC with Seth Rollins and Randy Orton. And Orton's off filming a movie, but there's rumor that he potentially could be back in time for Survivor Series. So if he is back at Survivor Series, Orton's on Team Cena. right?
Correct. If Orton's back at Survivor Series, take out Zack Ryder and put in Randy Orton. Yes. If he's not back, then I would say it'll be a Zack Ryder guy somewhere in that realm that Cena Ed. But I'm assuming at this point, I'm not planning on seeing Randy Orton until possibly the go home show of before TLC. We might be looking at like 7. I'm thinking 7-8 weeks without him because they're putting over Seth Rollins as the quote unquote, and pun intended, legend killer. He's taken out Orton on Raw with his finishing maneuver, and he's going to be off TV.
By the way, how awesome does that look? The curb stomp looks so good. Even off of the table last night on the steel stairs, it looks great.
It's great. And Rollins is, I mean, anybody that dogs WWE for not pushing new talent and not getting new stars and not doing this and not doing that hasn't watched WWE in the last year, because what they've done with Rollins has been absolutely beautiful. I have problems with what they did with the Shield in general, and I wrote about this website this week about how I think that they did not get enough out of guys like the Shield and guys like the Wyatt family when they were together. I still maintain that I don't think what happened with Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose after they got out of the Shield was good for their careers. Rollins, on the other hand, 100% makes sense. But I mean, he is Randy Orton 12 years ago. He is becoming the legend killer, the guy who is the future of the company. Even the promos that Triple H cuts on him sound exactly like what he said in 2003 about Randy Orton.
I mean, he's great. I dogged on him for a while, and the only reason I dogged on him is because I still buy into the larger-than-life type characters in professional wrestling. I mean, I like the Rybacks of the world because they are huge, and to me, I don't feel like in a real-life fight Seth Rollins beats a Ryback. I don't feel that's real. But professional wrestling suspends your belief and really involves you with the emotion part of it. And Seth Rollins is working his ass off. And with that being said, so is Dean Ambrose, so is Cesaro. They have a roster full of young guys who are doing a fantastic job. And you mentioned, obviously, we talked about your article you wrote on pencilpodcast.com about the stables in the WWE are good and how it was premature to break up the Wyatt family and to break up the Shield. And now we're seeing exactly what's coming, I guess, with those people and with the Wyatts.
I never hated them breaking up the Shield. I just thought they broke up the Shield because they wanted to push Seth Rollins. And now we see that and we know that. And I think that in a way, I think they wanted to push Roman Reigns. And if it wasn't for Dean Ambrose getting the Daniel Bryan treatment, I think he would be as lost in the shuffle. And I don't think that Roman Reigns' injury helps him whatsoever. I think he'd probably be at the top of the card right now. But just the way that it worked, I feel like we got a really good version of something that could have been absolutely great from the Wyatts and the Shield. And I wrote about it on our website. You and I were there watching it at Elimination Chamber last year. I just don't think we got enough of those two teams going against each other. We only got it a couple times, and when we did, it was electric. And I think they left something on the table, both those groups. What do you think about what the Wyatts, or what do you think about the Wyatts going forward? Do you like what's happening now that it seems like Ambrose has just completely forgot about Seth Rollins, and now he's going after Bray Wyatt, and however that's going to work, and however
I mean, it's good. It's a good question. To be honest, I wasn't happy with the Dean Ambrose Bray Wyatt situation last night. They were saying before Monday Night Raw that Bray Wyatt was going to reveal the secret of Dean Ambrose, and to my recollection, I don't think that they revealed much of anything, other than the fact that
I watched the entire episode and I didn't see him reveal shit.
Yeah, I mean, he revealed the fact that he came out and sat in that rocking chair, and then to totally mute the audience and blacken the screen like that, it's kind of stupid. And then it comes back and, that chair's rocking, he's gone. So they didn't do enough for me last night to really... this happened in the main event of Hell in a Cell. Like, this was the reason that Dean Ambrose didn't beat Seth Rollins at Hell in a Cell, and there's no attention paid to it in my eyes as far as how they're going forward. There's way more attention based on or focused on Seth Rollins. Rightfully so. That's more a compelling storyline to me. But as far as that storyline goes, I don't know. I guess they're going to have to really sell me on it more, because at this point, I'm more interested in seeing another match between Cesaro and Dean Ambrose, to be honest with you, because those two work so well together. Yeah,
and they've done absolutely nothing. While Roman Reigns has been hurt, they've done absolutely nothing to continue his push. Or they can have him do promos. They can have him do this. We've seen it how many years in wrestling when guys are hurt and they can still be in storylines. And they've just completely left him out in the cold.
Well, he's awful on the mic, though, right? Like, he's awful.
He's awful on the mic. And I guess I was actually going to ask you that regarding Daniel Bryan, too. Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns, both hurt off camera, can't wrestle. Like in the early 2000s or late 90s or whatever it was, when Stone Cold was injured and couldn't wrestle, he was still the main part of Monday Night Raw, and he couldn't even wrestle in matches.
He was strolling and singing "Kumbaya, baby." He was there every week because he was a champion, though.
Correct. But I just feel like they could do that on a smaller scale and keep those guys relevant, or do you think it's better just keeping them away and then having it be a bigger shock when they return?
Well, you know how they're keeping Daniel Bryan relevant is they feature him on that stupid show on E. So, I mean,
that one that I don't watch. That I don't watch.
And so that's how Daniel Bryan stays relevant and, whatever. Roman Reigns, if he's going to main event WrestleMania 31, he should damn sure be on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown regardless.
No fucking chance. If I have to read one more fucking dirt sheet other than the ones that I write on our website, I refuse to believe that Roman Reigns is in the main event of WrestleMania 31. I will not speak of it. I don't want to hear it anymore. No chance is that motherfucker in the main event of the showcase of the Immortals against Brock Lesnar. It wouldn't work. I'm not sold on it one bit at this point.
It would be a terrible business decision from the WWE to do that, and I think they have a backup plan. It really depends on Brock Lesnar's contract situation too. If he decides not to re-sign, his contract expires on Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. So if his contract expires, they got to strap that title on somebody else moving forward. And one thing that I want to touch on, you brought it up, the Wyatts. So we got to see the vignettes, and we saw the debut, or basically the rebirth of Eric Rowan on SmackDown. When I saw that, I saw Kane walk into the locker room, sit down next to Eric Rowan there watching Kane's movie, See No Evil 2, and I'm thinking to myself at this point, this is great for Eric. This is great for my buddy. Why not the devil himself, the demon, take him under his wing and have Eric Rowan be the new demon of the WWE, the new monster of the WWE, because they don't have one right now. Well, then on Monday, he did the gimmick with Renee Young and touching the hair and said pretty. And I immediately texted him, Trav. I texted him right away, and I said, hey, man, are you Lenny of Mice and Men? And for those of you who haven't watched or read the book of Mice and Men, there's a character named Lenny and a character named George. Lenny is a tall man who doesn't know his own strength, and he's retarded. And I mean that, like, legitimately he's retarded. That's kind of a disability he has in the book. He ends up killing animals because he doesn't know his own strength. George has to set him straight. And when I texted him that, and he responded back to me, he goes, I kind of look like him, I just talk more. So I wonder if the WWE is really going that route with him, where he's kind of a moron.
I never considered that until you just brought it up, but I do see that now, looking back at what's happened in the last couple of weeks. But first things first, I mean, your man Eric Rowan, he wasn't wrong, because that Renee Young, she is something backstage. We need more Renee Young on the TV, but I'll leave that as it is.
That on the rag, bro.
Oh God, I can't wipe the smile off my face whenever I think about that, because the Lunatic Fringe and Renee Young, I mean, that's a wedding that I would pay money to get an invitation to. There's no doubt about that. But Eric Rowan, if he's like, I could see what you're saying actually come to fruition in the next couple of weeks, if that is the direction they're going. And he might be the perfect kind of guy for it. There's not a lot of guys that probably could pull that sort of character off, but that's probably a slow burn, and that'll take weeks, months to be able to get across the entire audience. But I like the idea.
And he's not much of a talker in real life, so, I mean, this is a perfect role for him. If he has to say, you scared me, pretty, little things like that, where he's not cutting a promo. He's not going to be Bray Wyatt cutting a promo. He's not John Cena out there. So if they can give him this, that's a great character for him to play on TV. I don't know what they're doing with Luke Harper with the eyes last night. But Luke Harper is that type of crazy schizophrenic type of a character. But then how about Xavier Woods? You mentioned this on your article on pencilpodcast.com and Dirt Sheets about the Xavier Woods faction between Kofi, Xavier, and
Biggie.
Biggie. Yeah, Big E. Now, last night he did the choir singing with the microphone. I can really see, I really hope they include Big E on this, because Big E could do the big black preacher gimmick that he kind of did with his last promo on TV. Kofi can change up his gimmick and not wear the stupid-ass tights anymore, and they could really legitimately be a group similar to where they're standing for a cause, kind of like the Nation of Domination stood for a cause. Now, obviously in today's wrestling TV, it's a PG content, but if they can sit there and put over Vladimir Putin, why not be able to do something for black rights or something to make it a little controversial for TV? The Twitter universe last night blew up about the Xavier Woods. It's a new day. It was interesting to me. I watched it again before the show tonight just to kind of recapture that, I guess, that specialty of the moment. I'm a fan. Anytime they can reintroduce, and they're using vignettes a lot more, it seems like, with characters before introducing them on TV. Huge fan of that.
That's a complete Triple H thing. Those vignettes. It's a great move. He's a great wrestling mind, and hopefully we get more of them from more characters because it's only going to help. It's never good to overdo anything, but it'll help a handful of characters, and I think they can get away with having 2 or 3 of those on every episode of Raw with some of the stuff they put on there.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with him moving forward. And one thing I wanted to touch on before we break for the guest of the evening is I sat down and we had a debut of a new wrestling promotion here this week. Obviously, we have the WWE. We have Impact Wrestling, which you watch, Travis, on a regular basis. We both watch the WWE. I took a chance to sit down. I don't have the Lucha El Rey Network or the Del Rey Network. I have AT&T Uverse, so it's not offered to us. But I watched on YouTube the Lucha Underground main event from their pilot episode of this talked about wrestling show that's different than WWE. It's different than TNA. And it featured Ricochet, who is a great worker on the independent scene, probably the best in the world on the independent scene. And then Johnny Mundo, who is Johnny Nitro or John Morrison, however you want to look at him. Great wrestling match as far as high spots go. It really was a show of a match. And I just want to sit here and say, as a wrestling fan, I appreciate there's a third genre out there that we have a chance to watch. If you don't like WWE, fine, watch something else. Watch TNA. If you don't like TNA, watch Lucha Underground. If you don't like that, you're not going to like anything professional wrestling. Now, I also mentioned this on Twitter, and I got some flack for it. I said that the Randy Orton, John Cena match, or I think I said the John Cena, Seth Rollins match from Raw was a better wrestling match than Ricochet versus Johnny Mundo at Lucha Underground, because psychology-wise, their match made a lot more sense on Raw. But the moves that you saw that Johnny Mundo and Ricochet, or his Latin name or Spanish name is something Puma, it's unbelievable. They can do a bunch of different flips, a bunch of different reverses. The atmosphere is cool. It's kind of a small little scale. The fans are really into it. It's high on Lucha Libre wrestling. I strongly recommend you guys check it out on YouTube if you haven't watched it yet. But one thing I want to sit here and say, because people mentioned to me on Twitter, is the WWE is shit compared to Lucha Underground. Okay, you run 1,000 episodes on Monday night on a continual basis on 2 to 3 hour programming, and at that 1,000th episode, let me know if you're still around. Guaranteed Lucha Underground is not going to make it as long as WWE.
And I'll tell you one thing, Raw 1000 was one of my favorite fucking episodes of all time. So if you can go 1,000 episodes and have it still be on the upswing like WWE has, then you can call us, and we'll start a fucking pencil podcast on the Lucha Underground, and we'll keep talking WWE.
Totally with you, man. Totally with you. It was the pilot episode, people. Settle the hell down. I mean, it's going to be good. It's going to be good wrestling, but can they withstand it for the foreseeable future? Are they going to bring in enough characters? Because right now they don't have a lot of guys under contract, so we'll see. I mean, I'm not knocking Lucha Underground, okay? I'm not knocking it. I think it's great. It's great for professional wrestling. It's just quit comparing it and saying it's better than WWE. Because to be honest with you, what is the best wrestling promotion in the world? The promotion that makes the most fucking money. The WWE is $1 billion company. No one will ever challenge the WWE for that. The only way that the WWE could ever be bad, I think, as far as like its demise, is if Vince and the McMahon family actually sell it to somebody who doesn't give a shit about professional wrestling. With that being said, let's take a quick break, Dirt. We're going to bring back Minnesota sports personality, ESPN Radio 1500 from the Twin Cities, Phil Mackey. Let's talk professional sports. Let's talk the Minnesota Vikings. Let's talk Paul Mahler stabbing the Brewer fans in the back and joining the Minnesota Twins today. But don't worry, guys. We're going to talk a bunch of professional wrestling. We'll be right back after this.
You've been listening to another great episode of The Pencil, a professional wrestling podcast coming straight at you every Tuesday on iTunes, PodBean, Stitcher, and YouTube. But hang around, we got a lot more to come, because up next is the guest of the evening. We dive right into the world of professional wrestling, asking all the questions that you want answers to. Up next.
But how she said it, that made me feel so hurt.
He's not. Well, actually, he has been in a professional wrestling ring before. He is none other than ESPN radio personality at ESPN 1500 in the Twin Cities. Phil Mackey joining us. Phil, man, it's a busy day for you today. If you're just waking up in the sports world, Paul Molitor joining the Minnesota Twins, so you probably didn't get a whole lot of sleep covering that lately, man. But how have you been?
Good, man. In fact, you bring up the time I was in a wrestling ring. Number one, that was the first and only time I've ever wrestling ring for a wrestling event. And number two, I've been doing media for 10 years. I've never been more nervous about anything media related than I walked into your guys' world, and I've done TV and radio and everything 18 years old. And the last thing I wanted to do was piss the wrong person off or make an idiot of myself or clomp on somebody behind the scenes. So I'm just glad I made it out without getting my teeth kicked in backstage.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is how we met because I knew you were coming on the Heavy on Wrestling show for Jerry Lynn back in March of a year and a half ago now, I think it is.
Yep.
Down at the convention center, and we befriended each other.
I was at that show. I was at that show watching you.
Yeah, so, I mean, and we can talk about the Jerry Lynn show, but I have a question, Phil, that I just need to ask you because I'm a professional sports fan first and foremost. I'm a professional wrestler. I'm a sports fan, but when we talk Minnesota sports, and I'm from Wisconsin initially, we talk Brett Favre to the Vikings. It's a huge thing. My question to you, was Brett Favre as generous to you as a media reporter as he was to that Jen, the sidelines reporter in New York, and send you pictures on the reg?
You know, Brett and I still send sex back and forth. Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
You know, he's packing some heat in those Wranglers. Yeah.
I mean, not just the Wranglers, but have you seen the dude in the T-shirt lately? The guy's been hitting the gym, must be shooting the roids or something, but the guy's a beast, dude. He's huge now.
But it's like he's bored not playing anymore, and so for the last 5 years, it's like he's been mowing the lawn and doing bicep curls. I mean, he's seriously like that one photo where he's sitting down with the sleeveless shirt, and it's like one arm is twice the size of the other arm, so I don't know what he's been doing. But now he's got some kind of a razor endorsement, so he shaved that big gray beard off for the first time in a couple of years, too. I miss that guy.
I think we all miss Brett Favre. Brett Favre was I mean, I've heard stories about him in Green Bay, closing on the bar, missing the team photo. It's I mean, Travis was a quarterback in high school. Dirt, if you put your coolness factor up against Brett Favre, where are you two rating each other?
I mean, it was a smaller venue that I used to quarterback at Belmont High School in Southwest Wisconsin. So I don't think that I would have taken to me as Brett Favre. But I mean, the people did think kindly of me whenever I carried Belmont to the level 4 of the high school playoffs, and we lost. We didn't make it to the state championship game, but I was on a lesser level. If Brett Favre is on the 10th floor, I'm on that 3rd or 4th floor, I would say, of quarterback challenges.
What is he now? He's like 40. He's probably like 45 years old.
Yeah, he's got to be 40, 45, 46.
All right, so if you went up and down the list of NFL quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks right now, and you had a choice between you give Brett Favre 2 weeks notice. All right, you get 2 weeks to work out, learn a playbook, or Geno Smith, or
no, I'm only taking Phil. I'm only taking 7 or 8 guys over Brett Favre, maybe.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Like if you're the St. Louis Rams and Sam Bradford goes down a month ago, don't you at least make a phone call? You're going to lose 11 games anyway, so you might as well go down with a blaze of glory and bring back the gunslinger.
I mean, you bring up a soft spot or a sore spot in my heart because those damn St. Louis Rams just beat my Niners on Sunday for a bunch of BS calls on the field, but it's neither here nor there. But yes, Brett Favre would be a great wrestling personality, wouldn't he? I mean, I think if you put him in the ring at 40-some years old, that man could draw some money in the WWE right now. He's the ultimate if NFL were WWE guy, right? Because he's the ultimate gonna go away for a few months and make you think that I'm out of the. And you hear some rumblings among some of the blogs, or maybe he's coming back. When's he gonna come back? And all of a sudden he shows up to practice. How many times did he do the I'm going to retire and then I'm going to come back, the Undertaker bit, basically? He did it like 3 or 4 years ago. He's the perfect WWE example.
The WWE $99 a month, I would pay full price for any pay-per-view if Brett Favre was walking out of the bag ripping through some butt about it.
He's so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the WWE used to be pretty popular with bringing in guys from the NFL like Lawrence Taylor, the refrigerator from your Chicago Bears dirt. Like, I mean, the WWE used to do that. So why not reach out? And if they're going to bring these guests on Monday Night Raw and guest hosts of Raw, why not bring somebody like Brett Favre, who people actually give two craps about, and showcase those guns on national television every single Monday? Or better yet, Dirt, that 30 minutes after Raw on the network, put Brett Favre on that. People might buy the network for that. I know I would.
I wonder, as you talk about NFL players, it seemed to be a lot more common back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, but I wonder if you look up and down the league, these guys are getting so big. These 260-pound linebackers who run, 4.7 40s. I wonder if there won't be more of a lean toward that direction, where guys might realize, all right, well, I could either grind it out on practice squads, or I could play a couple of years and be a special teams guy, or I could go to I could go down to Orlando, Florida, wherever, and get some training in, and maybe have a chance to, if I can talk on a microphone, and have a real chance to make some life-changing money. Maybe you guys know more about.
Phil, you can be Brock Lesnar. You can be Brock Lesnar and carry around. You can carry around that belt, and you don't have to talk on the microphone at all. Brock Lesnar does it.
Exactly. Get a manager.
It's funny that you bring it up too, Phil, because I recently was just talking to a guy who played 11 years in the NFL. He was on 3 Super Bowl teams, 2 with the Packers, 1 with the Eagles. Jeff Thomason, he was a backup tight end for the Packers and backup tight end for the Eagles team that went to the Super Bowl. And he told me if I could go back and change everything, I wouldn't play in the NFL, because his job in the NFL was to pretty much run full speed on special teams and break up the wedge. He had been knocked out so many times, and he's had so many concussions. His knees are so bad. He told me that he'd go back and he wouldn't do that again. So I think that there's a big difference, because as pro wrestlers, at least me, I could have had 25 concussions. I could be in a wheelchair right now, and I don't think I would regret being in pro wrestling because I love it that much. But you're right. Half these guys, if they're on a practice squad not making any money, Brock Lesnar was popular before he joined the practice squad or was on the practice squad with the Vikings. But Roman Reigns, he was on the practice squad for the Minnesota Vikings, was he not? Or was he like in training camp with them? And he couldn't cut it and joined the WWE, and next thing you know, he's going to be the next big star in the WWE.
Yeah, Roman was in camp with them during the off season. I think before the 2007 or 2000. I covered those teams. It was either 2007 or 8, and I was at KFan at the time, the other sports radio station here. And
right.
I don't. Made it to camp. I think there was either an injury or they might have cut him before training camp, but he was in all the off season camp, like the mini camp and the OTAs, and he's one of those dudes where he just sort of blends in with all the other lines. In fact, he might have been one of the small. If you go to a training camp and you watch up close, and I'm sure you guys have seen, I don't know if you see practices or whatever, but there's 90 guys at training camp, and all of them are just mastodons. And I guess my question to you would be, concussions, and they're becoming more of a factor in all the sports, but especially the NFL. Are concussions a factor in professional wrestling? I mean, how many? If you're, let's say you're touring regularly, you're in the WWE, whatever you're doing, are you getting concussions when you take bumps and maybe you don't realize it? Or like, how many times have you gotten your bell rung in a match and maybe you had a concussion but you didn't really do anything about it?
In 11 years when I wrestled, I've had one verified concussion. But now I know the guys on TV with WWE now, if they show any sort of symptoms of a concussion, they have to go through the same impact testing that the NFL players have to go through.
Okay.
So they have to be – there have been times, like Christian, for instance, suffered a bad concussion. He still hasn't been back on TV. So
Dolph Ziggler had to vacate his title a few, 6-7 months ago, I believe, because of concussion syndromes that he had to sit out.
Well, he had to vacate the world title. He lost it to Del Rio after his concussion syndrome.
Yeah.
That was over a couple of years ago, but they have to go through the same impact testing as any major sporting league now, too. And if they don't pass, they're not allowed back in the ring because it's that serious. And it's so serious. Recently, if you read anything on WWE wrestling or on wrestling in general, there's a guy who worked for Vince for 2 years back in the 80s who's suing the WWE, similar to the NFL case, for neglecting concussion syndromes. But the thing is, They're saying that the WWE knew about this CTE disease that the NFL is now going through, and they're suing the WWE based on the fact that they covered up that they knew about this disease. So I'm not sure how much merit is there, but concussions are real in wrestling, and they're at this point, wrestlers have the best, basically, medical coverage they've ever had in wrestling because it's become so important in all the other sports that you cover, Phil, that the WWE has the strictest drug testing, apparently similar to the MLB or the Olympic drug testing now, to make sure nobody's on steroids, impact testing for concussions, anything along the lines that could put a wrestler at risk of further inducing injury on themselves. They take that stuff really seriously now. And when I was there for my tryout, they had a whole medical staff that even put me through the ringer before I could even get in the ring. I had to, I think I was with the doc about probably an hour, and he was checking different ligaments out on me. I've had ACL surgery, so he made sure that was tight and there was no situations there. Different strength drills that I had to go through just to make sure that I was healthy enough to compete in a wrestling ring. So I know they take it seriously, and they should, because this is a big deal. And I guess, what's your, talking about sports as far as covering the NFL and covering the Vikings, as a football fan, do you think that has made the sport better for the viewer, or has made the sport, I guess, kind of lame, I guess, in better terms, for the viewer watching the sport of NFL?
It is a little bit more lame, I guess, in the sense that, you remember ESPN, they did Jacked Up on Monday Night Countdown. Now they've got Come On Man, and a few years ago they did Jacked Up, and they just show all of these head-hunting hits. And I think that was fun to watch just from afar as a fan. But as far as the longevity of the sport, really watch the NFL. You watch the NFL for guys like Aaron Rodgers, for Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. I know there's other aspects of football, but football wouldn't be as much fun if you had backup quarterbacks against third-string quarterbacks, because the NFL wasn't protecting its quarterback. So whenever people complain, are just way too protected, and the NFL's babying these guys, and if you brush a jersey, you're going to get a 15-yard penalty. I do think it's a little outrageous sometimes with these 15-yard flags, but the NFL is trying to protect the superstars. And if you look at the NFL and the NBA the last 10 years, the ratings have gone up, the TV ratings have gone up in an era where most TV shows ratings are going down, because there's just a lot more channels to choose from in cable and more options. So it's harder to keep a lot. Well, and the NBA's ratings have gone up for two reasons. Number one, well, this is my theory. Number one, it's appointment watching. You can't really DVR an NFL game or an NBA game unless you really want to hide from all forms of media and avoid the score. You're going to watch it live, so the ratings are going to be high. And number two, offense has increased in both sports. We went from 10 years ago where you had the Pistons and the Spurs. This is like from the grind it out and score 85 points a game Spurs. And you had, the New Jersey Nets with Jason Kidd scoring 82 points. And basketball was this grinding, awful sport to watch. And now 10 years later, we're in the 80s where everyone's jacking three-pointers. You got superstars scoring 25, 30 points a game, a lot more of them. In the NFL, we've never seen this many passing yards. We've never seen this many points scored. And so for the hardcore fans who really like a defensive battle or a pitcher's duel, those fans, but for the casual fans, you've got to increase offense and highlight your superstars. And if that means calling an extra foul on Kobe in the NBA, or calling an extra 15-yard penalty if a defender brushes by Drew Brees, I think it makes the game more fun to watch for a mass audience.
Well, they didn't. Here, back to Brett Favre, and it's funny because they didn't protect Brett Favre when he played, and the man kept getting up and getting up and getting up. But yeah, I agree. I think nowadays, if you can keep the superstars in the game longer, it's better for the sport. And I think that also parallels nice into professional wrestling, because they really, even on Monday Night Raw, if you watched it, anytime somebody was busted open, they took a commercial break so they could doctor them up, because they don't want to show blood on TV, and they don't want anything getting worse than it actually is, because obviously lacerations can get infected pretty quick in professional wrestling. And I think it's just kind of a general consensus all around in every sport that let's clean it up a little bit, let's make it safer, and hopefully at the end of the day our superstars can shine and ratings will go up. And I'm a huge NBA fan, and I know Travis is a huge NBA fan. So let's talk NBA real quick here, Mackey. With Kevin Love leaving the Timberwolves, on a scale of 1 to 10, how big of a heel move was that by Kevin Love?
Hold on, you cut out for a second. On a scale of 1 to 10, say it again.
Yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, how big of a heel move was it for Kevin Love to bolt to Cleveland?
Oh, man. Well, if 10 is LeBron James going on national TV 5 years ago.
Hey, watch it. Watch it.
That's that, and I love LeBron James, and I love when professional Mauer turns heel at some, not at the fans. Like, that would be the ultimate heel turn. But Kevin Love was kind of a passive-aggressive heel turn. And he wrote that article that Derek Jeter started that website, theplayerstribune.com,
Right.
where he's got all these athletes writing their own articles, which I'm sure he got publicists and PR people helping him out. But Kevin Love writes the article a couple weeks ago, thanking the fans and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry I didn't get to say goodbye. It was it's just such a blur, and thank you for not burning my jersey." Like, dude, you were basically detached for 3 years here, and to sort of buddy up in that article a few weeks ago, you don't need to be passive like that. Just go full heel. He's the passive. I'm trying to think of a heel example that's kind of like he's a heel, and he's not really all in committed to it. I would
say Carmelo Anthony when he was in Denver. I think Carmelo and Kevin Love are very close parallels to one each other and how they ended their careers in their respective locations.
Yeah, and the thing is, he was never really put in a situation here where they empowered him from the get-go. If you look at everything that happened when he was with the Wolves, 3 different head coaches in 6 years, 3 different general managers in 6 years. And then when he finally improves his game over the course of 2 or 3 years to become one of the best players in the NBA stat-wise, and he's got a chance to make a 5-year max contract, and they say, well, we like you, and, we think you're the guy, but not enough to give you a 5-year max contract, so, we're going to give you less. And so at every corner, not that I'm justifying the way that he sort of quit on the franchise, but the franchise has been a disaster for 25 years. And so if you're going to name somebody or you're going to divvy out the most blame for why this relationship is a dumpster fire, it's because of Glenn Miller and the Timberwolves. I mean, it's like Kevin Love was 25 years old when the trade process started. And so he's not even really in his 22 or 23 to be the leader of this franchise where, Darko Milicic is the veteran leader behind the scenes. Give the guy something to work with. Quit whiffing on draft picks, and empower your best player with a max contract when he deserved it.
Yeah, I think Travis would probably say if you guys started drafting some dookies, you guys would be a title contender tomorrow.
Oh man, if they could start drafting some Duke guys, I would be all in for some season tickets at the Target Center. I'll still go to 4 or 5 games this year.
Duke players we drafted here in Minnesota. I think it was Christian Laettner 20 years ago, and then Will Avery might have been the other one.
Avery, that was a bad pick. He probably could have used 2 or 3 more years in college. I know he lost to UConn in his last game, but that was against Richard Hamilton. It was a great UConn team. It wasn't Will Avery's fault. But you're right. Those Dukies both sucked.
Yeah.
So in professional,
Grant Hill's one of them.
Grant Hill's great. Grant Hill is fantastic.
J.J. Redick's the best shooter in the league.
Yeah, there's that. He's good, too.
So professional wrestlers were known for being able to really drink a lot and party with the best of them. Now, you've been in Minnesota quite a while. The Love Boat. Did you get an invite, man? Were you on the Love Boat? Yes or no? You set the record straight. Was Phil Mackey on the Love Boat when that all went down?
I was actually one of the prostitutes they flew in from Atlanta. Yeah, major career change for me in the last 10 years. You probably made more money doing that than you would be with being a radio personality. I'm sure that I don't know who was actually all on that boat, but I'm sure they tipped pretty well. Oh, just the tip, absolutely, yeah. I was an intern. It's 2005, so this is like fall of 2005. I was interning at 19 or 20 years old, and I was the Mike Tice show. Mike Tice was the coach at the time.
Jesus Christ, I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, that was a great run. In fact, I think at some point he might get a shot, especially if Mike Smith gets fired in Atlanta. Mike Tice is the offensive line coach there, so intern job. But Mike Tice, the week after that Love Boat incident happened, I'm the intern who's cutting up audio for the Wednesday night Mike Tice show. And him coming in with the PR guys, it was like the most awkward. He knew he was going to get asked about it for an hour. Best ever was in the middle of the locker room that week. All the reporters are obviously in the locker room, and they're ready to ask all these questions about the Love Boat. And Mwelde Moore, who I believe was on, there was two boats. I think he might have been on the boat that didn't have the sex party, but he was on one of the boats. And somebody asked Mwelde Moore, one of the reporters, about, so what was happening on the boat? Was it a sex party? He goes, sex? I don't know nothing about no sex. And he kind of like walked away from overacting and overplaying his hand, because obviously we found out what happened later. But is it really a shock that Brian McKinney and Fred Smoot were the guys that wound up organizing that? Like, the two guys that you would never be surprised with any antics were the guys who organized that thing back in the day.
Well, Travis, you've been on Lake Minnetonka before. We were there for a bachelor party. I mean, obviously, case in point, you're going to deny. It's what you do. But if you're not having sex parties on Lake Minnetonka, you're doing Lake Minnetonka completely wrong, especially in the summertime.
I can neither confirm nor deny. I've been to Lake Minnetonka. I will not talk any more about it.
I'm with you. All right, so Phil, let's talk heel turns in Minnesota sports history. What if you had to put your finger on the biggest heel turn that involved Minnesota sports franchise, whether it be a player leaving the franchise, a player joining the franchise, anything that involved Minnesota sports, who or what has been the biggest heel turn in Minnesota sports history?
You know what? I would say the guy who is known as the biggest heel after leaving Minnesota, but I can't figure out why Minnesota fans think he's a heel. I can't figure out why they hate him, is AJ Pierzynski.
Yes. See, we were talking about this before you came on, too, and I said it's either going to be AJ or it's going to be Brett Favre turning his back on the Packer Nation and joining the Vikings. It's got to be one of those two.
But Brett Favre, because Brett went to the Jets first,
right?
And the fact that Brett, first off, wanted to come back to the Packers, and he went to training camp that one day in Green Bay, made it really awkward, and Aaron Rodgers is our guy, and so they had that awkward 5-day stretch where they didn't know what was going to happen with Favre. And then he goes to the Jets, so there was that kind of 1-year buffer. With AJ, if you think about it, they traded him in 2004 season, and so they wind up getting the Twins, Francisco Liriano, the best closer in franchise history, and one of the best starting pitchers, well, when he was healthy, of the last 10 or 15 years for the Twins. And they also got Boof Bonser, who was a pretty serviceable pitcher for a couple of years, but, he wasn't great, but a guy you can use. And not only that, he replaced a lineup with Joe Mauer, one of the for a 5-year stretch, one of the best hitters in baseball before injuries and stuff caught up to him. And so for fans to look at that and hate A.J. Pierzynski, it wasn't like he demanded his way out of town. The guy's kind of a jerk, and he's one of those guys that if he's not on your team, I think he's just sort of abrasive. But I think Twins fans should give that dude a standing ovation every time he comes back for the haul they got for him in that trade.
Okay, so I agree. My fiance hates him too for some reason. Her whole family hates him. She's from Minnesota. And you mentioned Joe Mauer, who's the face of the franchise, the biggest face in Minnesota sports history. Because of the fact that he's the biggest face in Minnesota sports history, do you think that hurts him because he is unwilling to go elsewhere and basically win a championship? I just don't think with him, he's going to end his career in Minnesota, more than likely. I don't think he's going to win a championship. Do you? I mean, you got to stay put. You're a Twins fan, but would he be better off going to a different franchise and giving the financial ability for the Twins to seek talent elsewhere and for him to go off and seek a championship?
I think... We're talking about Joe Mauer, right?
Yes.
I think, here's the problem with Joe Mauer. As a catcher, he can absolutely be a key piece to find catchers who get on base at a 400 clip and hit 320. In fact, Joe Mauer has the highest batting average and I believe the highest on base percentage of any catcher in Major League history through age 30, which is pretty amazing. Now that he's a first baseman, I don't even know if any team right now, if he didn't have a no trade clause, I'm not even sure what he makes $23 million, and he's injury prone. He never plays a full season. Last year was supposed to be the rejuvenation. All right, he's going to be healthy. You go take away the catching gear, take away the foul tips, stronger legs at the end of the season. He was really good in the second half of the year, but he missed like 2 months or whatever it was with the strained oblique. I don't think his contract prevents the Twins from winning a World Series because they've got money to spend if they want to. I think it's just been the bad decisions they've made with the money they have to spend. Like they gave Nick Blackburn a long-term deal for no reason. They signed guys like Kevin Correa, who just got shelled for 2 years. A guy like Mike Pelfrey with an injury history, and that guy signed to a 2-year contract for really no reason. So I think they've got to spend better on pitching. Ricky Nolasco, 4-year contract, and that guy was the worst pitcher in baseball last year. So if he's healthy, he can. I think he can still help this team for the next few years. And they've got money to spend around him, but that's like a Sasquatch sighting in the last 3 years.
All right, so let's talk. Let's revert our attention back to the Vikings, and let's wrap this into the World Wrestling Entertainment. Travis and I need a lobbyist in Minnesota. We need a man who loves professional wrestling, and we need a man who's involved in Minnesota sports. And now you look like and seem like the perfect candidate for this position, Phil. With the brand new Viking Stadium going to be up and built in a couple years, we know WrestleMania 31 is in San Francisco. We're pretty certain 32 is going to be in Dallas because Dirt and I are going to go to that show. Can you get WrestleMania 33 to Minneapolis, Minnesota in the brand new Viking Stadium? Can you do it? Can you lobby for us to get WrestleMania 33 in Minneapolis?
It's such a no-brainer. Everyone's all geeked up about the Super Bowl coming here in a few years. Who cares? We had a Super Bowl here in 1992. We don't need another one. We need WrestleMania. I don't, monster truck.
Thank you, Phil.
Dude, honestly, like it's such a no-brainer for it to happen too, because think about how many great wrestlers in history either live in Minnesota or are from Minnesota, and even current ties still in the WWE. Minnesota is one of the hotbeds for wrestling, and there's so many ties. And you could make Hall of Fame ties. I mean, I have to think about guys who aren't in the WWE Hall of Fame who are from Minnesota who you could elect in for the. It's got to be a no-brainer. And hasn't been to a WrestleMania. Save your money, whatever you have to do. It's such an unbelievable experience. And for some of my non-wrestling friends who, like I tell them the story, I covered the Twins in Fort Myers when I was covering the Twins beat for a few years. And so basically, like, I would live in Fort Myers for 6 or 7 weeks covering baseball every day and doing radio. Well, a couple of years ago, WrestleMania was at 28 or 29, was in Miami at Sun Life.
28.
28, and I had never been to a WrestleMania before, and I'm down there alone. It's 2.5 hours away from Fort Myers. You got to drive all the way across the state. So I went on StubHub, spent way too much on one. Got there like 2 hours before the event, so I basically was there for 6 hours just taking it in, making new friends who I've never met before, watching the Hell in a Cell match between Undertaker and Triple H, and the next day I caught wind that there might be a major former star returning on Monday Night Raw the next night. And so I said, screw it. I'm driving 2.5 hours the next day again to American Airlines Arena to watch Brock Lesnar come back. So it was 10 hours round trip in like a 24-hour span and WrestleMania. And unless you've been in a stadium with 80,000 people going crazy like that for 4 hours, that's people kind of mock the notion of, I can't believe you would go to WrestleMania. Are you serious? 80,000 people going crazy, even if you're not a hardcore fan. It's such an awesome experience, and I guarantee it'll be here at some point. Hopefully in whatever it is.
Right, and I'm totally with you. A brand new stadium, and the way it looks beautiful. Yeah, we went to WrestleMania last year. I know you were planning on coming. It fell through, but unbelievable experience. It was my third WrestleMania that I went to. You put a 20-foot by 20-foot ring in the middle of a football stadium, and you sell that place out. No other sporting event does that. It is absolutely fantastic. It is the greatest thing in the world. So lobby for us, Phil. Make sure you use your voice on ESPN Radio and get it happen there. Do you still watch the product today on TV on a consistent basis?
I do. I try to watch every week. I try to at least watch Monday Night Raw every single week. In fact, I almost always watch it live because on Monday nights I've got one TV. I get the two TV set up, one on Monday Night Football, one on Raw. But I don't know. It's like I want to watch and I want to keep up with the product, but I feel like so often in the last 6 months, or even sometimes even going back off and on the last 5 or 10 years, I don't feel like the storylines are well thought out from a long-term perspective. To me, when it feels like the same intro and the same setup for each pay-per-view, and instead of like weaving stories, you get one or two of those. It feels like, I don't know if it's like bad writing or if there's too many levels to go through to get approval for some of the storyline ideas, but I do feel like it tends to get stale, and I'm glad that they're pushing some of the guys that they're pushing right now, like Ambrose and Rollins. Awesome that they're pushing those guys.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you about the youth movement. But if you had to pick one guy in the WWE, who is your favorite wrestler in the WWE right now and why?
Well, ask that one more time. I got a Skype cutout.
Yeah, no. Who is your favorite wrestler right now in the WWE and why?
So try it one more time. It keeps cutting out after you say, "Who is your favorite?"
Who's your favorite wrestler right now in the WWE?
Okay. Man. Well, CM Punk's gone, so Daniel Bryan, if he ever comes back, is my favorite in-ring guy to watch right now. My favorite character right now, and the guy who I'm just most intrigued to watch every week, is probably Ambrose, just because he's got the type of character that I think could fit in the mid to late 90s, the early to mid stages of the Attitude Era. It's a totally different era now, and that's and that's the era where they were doing 6 and 7 shares on Monday nights. But I think he's good on the microphone. He's a good in-ring worker, and I think he's the type of guy that if they build the right storylines around him and they give him the right opponents and they don't rush him too fast. I like that they're kind of slow cooking him. He's in the main event scene, but he's not really in the mix for a title right now, and I think that's the way you have to do it. So to me, it's about you have to be good in the ring, but you also have to be really good on the microphone, and then you have to have the right set of circumstances around you to really catch fire. The guy, I'll give you another one I love watching in the ring. You can tell I like the smaller dudes. Dolph Ziggler, and I don't know.
Oh, Dirt.
If he just runs into a glass ceiling and they're not going to push him back to main event status like they had him at 3 years ago, but I love watching that dude in the ring. Cesaro too. Well, last night we had a couple when you got Cesaro and Dolph Ziggler and Ambrose and Rollins, and you can mix those guys for singles matches. Those guys, if they're out there for 20 minutes, working for 20 minutes, I'm glued to my TV. They're so much fun to watch.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's a good youth movement. I'm a huge Randy Orton guy. Travis likes Dolph Ziggler quite a bit, but you know what we should do is the three of us should sit down and we should call a match sometime in Minneapolis. We just go to some indie promotion and we should get on the headsets and call the commentating, because I bet you the three of us could do some really good stuff on the independent scene. And I love professional wrestling. I know you like professional wrestling and sports in general, and you're involved in media. And, to be honest with you, I really appreciate you coming on the show and shooting the shit with us for the last 35 minutes about sports, pro wrestling, all the above. I definitely think that we should do this again sometime in the future.
Yeah, if the three of us could crack open some beers and even if it's like a Ustream, just to call, it would be fun. And I think
count me in.
We can get Renny D to. Can we get you out of retirement? Because I've been looking to manage for like 2 years. And
I'm telling you, if I come back, if and when I come back to professional wrestling, I would love to have a manager, and I think I've mentioned this to you before, I think that you would be perfect for it, and we could make a pretty good team. And then Dirk could be the guy who just takes his shirt off and puts baby oil on and looks cute for the girls, and we'd be all set to go.
Sounds like I'd fit in just fine.
The problem is, it has to be. There's almost no way I could get on the microphone and pander to the audience. So you better be ready to go full on heel. That's the only thing.
I mean, have you seen me? I'm the greatest heel I've ever seen in my entire life, dude. I mean, it's not even a question. If I could get in the ring tomorrow and give me a microphone, I guarantee that if there was 40 people there or 400 people there, everybody would hate me, and that's a fact. That is a fact of the matter. But yeah, I mean, dude, seriously, thank you for coming on the show. Let's do this again. Let's talk more sports, wrestling, whatever it is. Dirt, do you got any questions for Phil before we cut this one loose?
We're good to go. Thank you, Phil. We appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, guys. Next week, we have the king of the independent wrestling scene on the show, Luke Hawks. Until then, if you like the music that you heard tonight, check them out. The band name is Zero. We're going to have some information on them on our website, pencilpodcast.com. As always, rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. We're on YouTube, PodBean, and Stitcher. Follow us on Twitter at Pencil Podcast. Follow Phil Mackey on Twitter as well. He's at Phil Mackey. Or listen to ESPN 1500 if you're in the Twin Cities. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great weekend, or a great week, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Hey, everybody. You're listening to The Pencil, a professional wrestling podcast hosted by me, Renny D, and my friends. Each and every Tuesday, we come at you with a new episode on iTunes, PodBean, Stitcher, and YouTube, where we discuss the previous week's product on television, as well as the ins and outs of professional wrestling news and rumors. We'll also bring you exciting guests to bring you their perspective on professional wrestling. Follow us on Twitter at Pencil Podcast.